Last One Laughing, the Murderbot Diaries, and Hello High Rollers. This is Staying In. We made it.
We did it.
We made it. I still don't know the lyrics.
What, for Auld and Syne?
Yeah, I listened back to the podcast we recorded a year ago to this day, where in my own mind's eye, I'd planned to try and learn the lyrics to Auld Lang Syne. Not done it.
So in your mind, what are the lyrics as they stand? How far can you get before you start stumbling?
Oh, Dan. Right, can we just have a little footnote here? Everyone knows that I don't remember the lyrics to things, and I'll just kind of like run them together and make up new words.
That's fine. That's what makes this interesting.
Okay, right, first word.
Auld Lang Syne.
So sorry. So in your history of
Sorry,
hearing,
can you hear me? Is my microphone working? Sorry, it might not. It might be my microphone, Sam. Sorry.
you've never heard the first word, which is probably the most definitive word of the song, not including Auld Lang Syne.
I'm generally drawing a blank.
I
Okay.
tell you what, Chris. The first word is should. I'll be honest with you. I thought it was different than that, but so maybe I was wrong. So the first word is should.
Should.
So you have to learn that. So next year we'll teach you the second word.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been doing Duolingo for quite a long time now, nearly 500 days, and there's not one on like folk tunes. Yeah,
For Auld Lang Syne.
it just doesn't go in. Just does not go in. And I've heard this at least 40 times.
Maybe we should teach him the first line, because we might be here a very, very long time if we're going to teach him one word a year.
Sing along at home.
So, Chris, the first line to Auld Lang Syne
Yep.
is, should old acquaintance be forgot?
Should old acquaintance be forgot? Tell you what.
Perfect. Smashed it. Nailed it.
Okay, I reckon at the end of the app, come back to me and let's see if I remember that. I promise you I'm not going to Google anything. I've not written anything down.
Right, we'll test you at the end.
Happy New Year, listener.
Yeah. Welcome back.
It's that time of the year, which we've been doing for a few years now, where we get together to bring in the new year by reflecting in the vein of Auld Lang Syne on our favourite things from the previous year. So our favourite things from 2025.
Yeah, and though Pete is not with us, unfortunately, he has shared with us his favourite 5 things from 2025. And the rules for this are quite simple. I mean, I don't think we've ever written rules down, but the way I've sort of understood it is the things that we talk about are things that we have encountered for the first time or things that we have enjoyed the most in 2025. They don't have to be released or made or created. Then it's just, this is the year that we first came across that thing or first found true enjoyment from it. We don't have to have mentioned it on the podcast before. And that's about it, really, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I think by the nature of like the way we play our games and films and TV shows, we tend to speak about most things we've enjoyed. But I think there are some things, there's definitely some things. One thing in particular on my list that I can't believe we didn't talk about, but apparently we didn't. So we'll come around to those. But I think a lot of them you can kind of go back and listen to on previous episodes, maybe a fuller understanding of when we first had that kind of experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking about this actually because, and I'm just gonna go straight right in, right? Because there's one thing on my list which we didn't talk about on the pod, and I was kind of thinking about why haven't I? If this is in my top 5 of 25, why haven't I brought it to the podcast? And I think that there is a combination of things for that. I think sometimes we bring stuff to the pod because we know it will make a good discussion, not necessarily because it's like the best thing ever, but we think like it will be an interesting thing to talk about. And the other reason being that we just know that as soon as you mention things, everyone else will just turn off and not want to pay any attention to it.
It's the WhatsApp. It's the curse of WhatsApp, isn't it? When somebody recommends something in the WhatsApp, which we've spoken about before, it's the death knell for that thing.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think we tend to always get round to it. Like I said to you the other day, Kris, that I recently watched Deadlock, which you talked about last year, but I only recently got round to watching it, and it is fantastic.
Yeah, it just slowly sleeps in. Like there's some on your list, Dan, that I watched later on in the game and really absolutely loved. But so my first pick is, and it's the only one on my list that we haven't talked about in the podcast before, and it's a bit of a cheats one because it's kind of two things in one package.
You always do this, Sam. When we do these lists, you always, like when we did our top 100, you put in all of June, like every different variation of it. You ended up putting like 20 things in for one of your options.
I thought that was quite clever. So for me, it is the book series and TV series of the Murderbot Diaries.
I've never heard of this.
So, let me pitch it to you. So, I first came across the Murderbot Diaries as a recommendation that I heard on the Besties podcast, which is a fantastic video game podcast. Sometimes they mention other things as well. But I heard about the Murderbot Diaries on there. It's a series of science fiction novellas by Martha Wells. And so the first thing to say is the Murderbot Diaries is a terrible name for a book. Okay? Are we all agreed?
Yeah.
If I saw the Murderbot Diaries on a shelf, I'm not picking that book up. I'm walking straight past it. However, nothing could be further from the truth in terms of how brilliant this book series is. If you've got an Audible account, or if you've got Spotify Premium, I'd really recommend listening to the books. They're novellas, so they take about 3 or 4 hours to read, and they're excellent. They all center around a cyborg guard, what's called in the book a sec unit, a security unit, otherwise known as a murderbot. And I think what makes this series really interesting is the idea that this security unit is in no way interested in doing their job in any way whatsoever. So you learn early on that this unit has hacked a thing called the governor module. So this is the module that kind of stops it from hurting other people and stops it from following its own commands, and it has to meet and obey the people who own it. So it hacks it. And what it decides to do with its newfound freedom is to download about 1,000 episodes of this really high profile and really shoddy TV show. And it just sits and watches this TV show all day. And pretty much the whole book is it just trying to do whatever it can to get the humans off its back in order so it can just go back to its room and just watch this TV show that it's obsessed with. Like, it's such a unique and pleasant idea that it isn't this sycophantic way of looking at AI or technology. It isn't this worshipping technology in any way. It is a way of looking at it as if you took all the reins off technology and AI and actually decided to be quite slovenly and lazy with its intelligence.
So is it two narratives in one, Sam? Are you as much invested in the narrative of this drama that it's watching as well as the narrative of the bot's life?
So that's a wonderful segue for me to talk about the TV show. So later on in 2025, Apple turned this into a TV show starring one of the sexy Stellan guards. Which one was it?
Peter Skarsgård?
No.
Alex.
Alexander? Alexander. That's the really tall blonde one who was in Succession and other things.
Oh, he's not the one who's in It.
No,
that's Peter, I think, isn't it?
There's so many Skarsgårds.
Anyway, it stars him, and what the TV show does really well is actually provide and make some of the TV show that he is watching. So you've almost got this like meta narrative. as part of the TV show, that you see what he is watching, and it kind of echoes in the reality that he is perceiving. Overall, the story is a bit of an allegory for autism and people who have difficulty communicating and reading social cues and talking to other people. Like, he is a robot who really struggles. He can't maintain eye contact. He doesn't want to be really around people. He doesn't understand when the people that he's looking after start treating him as a human and like hugging him and showing emotion and communicating to him in a way that is kind of metaphorical or non-literal. Like, he really struggles with that as a character, like doesn't really understand what's going on, doesn't really understand why they treat him as if he's part of the family. Like, he just sees himself as a robot. So the whole series is just like this allegorical tale about what it's like to be autistic and kind of that view on the world and have a neurodivergence, which is interesting and on itself. And then the other thing that Murderbot does is, and this is I think the reason why I like it, is it is a fantastic thing of putting together a group of people who accidentally stumble upon a grander narrative that's playing on and don't realise that they are part of like this grander narrative. Like, he's just assigned to this group of scientists and all they want to do is just go down onto this planet and look at some rocks, and they don't realise that they've stumbled across this big grand interplanetary conspiracy. And I just love those kind of narratives where like in some way the stakes are really small, but in other ways like they're really large because they don't really understand what it is that they've stumbled upon. So both the book and the TV series are really, really excellent. Personally, I think that I'd try the book out first. It's probably more accessible than the TV series because not a lot of people have access to Apple TV Plus.
Do you think the series is enhanced having read the book first? Or are there elements of it, the fact that it's better to watch that TV show and then be surprised from that? I always like to read a book first, so I can have my own experience and my own kind of imagination around that, and then watch an adaptation and kind of see how they thought about it differently. But in doing so, everything's been spoiled for me when I'm watching the program, so I know everything that's coming up. There's no surprise there. So do you think with Murderbot there is that element of surprise that benefits from not having read the book?
I think it does maintain an element of surprise because the book is all from the sec unit's point of view, like it is their diaries. And then what the TV series does is it has that, and it has a bit of a narration by the Murderbot, but also it kind of brings out some of the other characters and the interrelationships between them. So it's not completely all from one side, and you kind of learn a bit more about how they start to see the Murderbot differently and see it as part of the crew, and want it to be considered like a human member, just like they are. So it does kind of like really bring out a lot of the themes and has a bit more time to explore them as well. So I think they're quite pair. I don't think my viewing of the TV show was in any way harmed, and also I think it's a really faithful retelling of the first novella.
Now, Dan, there's a TV series that you and I watched last year that also has a Murderbot in it.
It does, and I'm Sam's last entry of Murderbot Diaries has made me reconsider whether to put what you're talking about in there, because I just remembered I read a book that I loved this year as well that I'd forgotten about. I've already made my list. I'm going to stick with it, but a little kind of honorary mention to I read Project Hail Mary this year, which I really enjoyed, by Andy Weir.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about adaptations, that's coming out kind of next year. But yeah, we didn't talk about the podcast. I'm not going to go into big detail about it now, but yeah, I really enjoyed that. That's Andy Weir, who also wrote The Martian, and that was what kind of drew me towards it, because I really like his style of writing. But yeah, that was fantastic. But I think the element you're thinking of, Kris, and the item you're thinking about, which is on mine, and we didn't talk about it on the podcast, although we did talk about the first series of Andor. I'm not kind of a fan of Star Wars in the sense of like I'm an obsessive Star Wars fan, which obviously you can get with those kind of areas. I'm a huge fan of Star Wars. I watched all kind of the original trilogy when I was young. Like the prequels, I still liked them. Like Phantom Menace, I thought was good. I mean, admittedly, it's a kid's film, and I was a kid at the time, so that makes sense.
I still like it.
The PS1 game is fantastic.
Jedi Power Battle, Sam.
Not that one, but the other one.
Oh.
So I am a big fan of Star Wars, but I also take into account the fact that at times it's also a little bit naff. But I can honestly say, for me, without any question, Andor is the best thing I've ever seen within the Star Wars universe. It is the most complex and interesting and thought-provoking element that there aren't many shows I've watched where an episode finishes and I just sit there and go, wow, that's just so good. It's not even just about I want to watch the next episode. It's just that feeling of that was so every element about it worked brilliantly and it's just excellent. And that's what kind of Andor season 2 was as well. I thought it was absolutely fantastic.
As a Star Wars property, like what is Star Wars bringing to something like Andor? Like if you stripped all the Star Wars-ness of it out, or set it in an office,
I get what you mean. You take it out of that universe. Does it stand up basically?
Yeah, like what is? I think that's what I just don't get is like nothing really. And I've never seen it in the cultural zeitgeist has really hit in terms of what Andor does as a TV series, which makes me think that its success is nothing to do with it being a Star Wars property.
I think it's the kind of thing that Star Wars gets it the foot in the door.
Okay.
And that's what gets it into the room, and then actually it's just fantastic. So for me personally, it speaks right to the kind of things that I love. A lot of it is people in rooms talking, and it's the conversation. It's about what's said and what's not said, and it's all those things. And those are the kind of things I love. One of the reasons I love courtroom films is for that same kind of reason. But also, there's always like certain storylines that like we gravitate towards. Like we're all different, we'll gravitate towards different things. And I am an absolute sucker for that plucky little underdog against all odds being beaten down by a bully who then stands up afterwards and says, "No, I'm not going to lie down for you." That like Cool Runnings is exactly that's the kind of thing of like
Wow.
It's the kind of thing of like the underdog who's been pushed down by the man who will always stand back up again, never stop fighting. I am an absolute sucker for that. Goosebumps when that happens. And that's basically what Andor is. So Andor is the story of the rebellion, which I realised in watching Andor, I didn't really, when I would watch the original trilogy when I was young, when I was watching it originally, it was Luke's story. That's basically it. It was a story of Luke Skywalker. Whereas now I get so much more of the idea of the rebellion out of it, which I never really got to the same kind of extent. And that's what it is. It's like starting at the beginning of Andor, it's the spark, and it is tiny sparks, and you can see how these tiny elements of rebellion organically come together, and suddenly one spark's a little bit bigger, and suddenly it starts to catch fire over here and over here and over here, and suddenly it's all happening in all these different areas, and you can see this uprising. And the way that the story is told feels very organic. It doesn't feel like it's taking massive leaps. I mean, in the second series, I think one thing I actually quite like is the fact that it does utilize time jumps in the second series. And so you get this feeling that this isn't something that has happened over a few days. This is happening over a long period of time, that it's a slow progress, this rebellion to kind of get up steam against the Empire. And it's obviously leading towards Rogue One. It's just fantastic. I think the performances across the board are incredible. Both the main characters, the kind of the lead ensemble cast, as well as like bit part players. Like, and obviously I'm talking about season 2 here, but like Andy Serkis is in season 1, his performance in that is amazing. But yeah, it definitely stood up to be one of those shows this year that I just absolutely adored.
Yeah. And it almost doesn't really deserve to be in the Star Wars universe. And I'm a Star Wars fan, but it's really about seeing what oppression does from all areas and understanding how that becomes fertile growth for rebellion. Having a showrunner that isn't a Star Wars fan, so therefore they don't feel they've got to do fan service things, makes a hell of a difference, Sam. And, okay. and listener, like Tony Gilroy, the showrunner, is quite a history buff. And it feels, everything you are seeing here, you just feel that this is a historical event that is happening to take place in a galaxy far, far away. You mentioned courtroom meetings, Dan. I can see that our good pal Pete, one of the things he had in his top 5 was Apollo Justice, which we spoke about in episode 219 of the pod. I've not played this series. I know that and Phoenix Wright is something that Pete is a massive long-time fan of.
Yeah. I feel like Pete could have put this in his list like for the last decade.
Yeah. But I think for him it's in his list because he finally, quote-unquote, completed it.
Yeah. I feel like if we dug even a little bit below that, we would reveal something that he hasn't done and he would lose his mind and crumble.
Yeah, I think he's on the tipping point.
Pete doesn't finish anything, he completes it.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, unfortunately we can't talk a lot about it other than the fact of apparently it's great.
It happened. Yeah. And tune in to episode 219, listener, if you are also interested in learning about Apollo Justice. I kind of want to keep with television series, and I want to talk about a series that I've never spoken about on the podcast before, and that was Department Q. You mentioned, Sam, that sometimes we talk about things in this top 5 list that we never spoke about on the pod because there was a wariness that if we recommended it, no one would watch it. This is a series that has been a real slow burn for me, and I can't quite make my mind up whether it's a series that you would necessarily enjoy, both of you.
So this is a fairly new series, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It came out early last year.
Well, I've watched the first episode.
Okay. Gosh, you are good, Sam, aren't you?
I do try.
You do. So this is Department Q, or Dept Q, if you want to use what's on the Netflix title, which doesn't have the same ring to it, does it? Like Murderbot Diaries, it's based on a book series, but this is a Danish book series by Jussi Adler-Olsen, which relocates it from the streets of Denmark to the streets of Scotland, Edinburgh, I think, specifically. This is a very grimy series where you've got a lead detective who is very good at their job, but nobody really likes. Their personality is slightly arseholery, and they tend to rub people up the wrong way, but they're just such a damn good cop, Dan, that they just don't know what to do with them. And then an opportunity arises as a kind of a bit of a PR kind of stunt, really, to make the police station look good. They create a cold case department on a shoestring budget, which is in the basement of the police station. And like, it's dingy down there. There's like urinals on the wall and stuff. They have to try and find furniture where they can. And Matthew Good, who plays DCI Carl Mork, plays the role really, really well. Like, they're never, ever likable enough that you care for them fully. But equally also, they're not so much of an uncouth cad that you go off them straight away. And I think Good treads a really nice tightrope, I think, between those two states. But it's this single cold case that's told out for a few episodes where this barrister went missing. Everyone believes they're dead, but for some reason Mork has just picked this random file and believes they're still alive somewhere. What I'm saying to you is not necessarily anything that you've perhaps not seen or experienced in a bog standard procedural.
Because I was just going to say, it did sound quite kind of, maybe formulaic. If you think of like in other areas, think something like House, it's a grumpy genius who surrounds himself with a team. Something like Slow Horses, you've got that grumpy kind of protagonist with kind of a team around them. So what is it about this that either elevates that or takes it in an interesting direction?
Well, there's less farting in this.
That's one thing.
what I kind of gravitated towards was this kind of not very nice person at the center of it, trying to be a human, trying to find what it is to be a person. But as you go through episode by episode, you realize they're just as vulnerable as everyone else around them. Again, nothing we haven't seen before. I'm not trying to pitch this as something brand new.
Things don't always need to be brand new. They don't always need to be kind of changing the dynamic. They can just be a formula done very, very well.
But this is the reason why I never spoke about it on the pod, because I genuinely was not looking to recommend it to you. It just so happened to be a TV series that I enjoyed this year.
We've been focusing a lot on kind of the TV things here. So maybe, do you think we should round off all of our TV things and then move on to something else, or do we want to mix it up?
Let's round off the TV stuff. Let's round off the TV. Pete's not said any TV things.
He's not. He doesn't watch TV.
Nope.
No. So I had two other things there. One we did talk about on the podcast, one we didn't. So the first one I had that we talked about in episode 228 was Common Side Effects.
Oh.
So this was an animated show from the kind of the people behind King of the Hill, on Adult Swim. Not the kind of thing that I would associate with that company, but it was a show around this kind of hippie scientist who discovers a mushroom that can cure any illness, any ailment at all, and then what does that do to society, basically. Obviously, back in kind of episode 228, I kind of waxed lyrical about this. I don't think at the time any of you had seen it. From the sounds of your response there, Sam, it sounds like you have seen this now.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find it? Because I absolutely loved it.
It's my favourite show of this year.
Oh, wow.
When you explain the plot to people, I think you kind of know where it's going to go, or you kind of think you feel like you know where it's going to go, but the way that the plot and the narrative really maturely addresses what the ramifications of such a big thing would be is so incredibly nuanced and interesting, and it doesn't propose that it knows the right answer either. I think it is just a really good story, excellently told, and I feel like it's also one of those stories, and this is what makes, Vince Gilligan's writing also really good. It feels like a story that has been plotted out for at least a couple more seasons. Like they feel really confident in actually knowing where it's going to go and being a complete story and the story that it wants to tell. And I love watching a show that is that so well assured.
Yeah, you don't get the sense that in a lot of shows, as you approach the end of a series, you feel like it's going to come to a conclusion, and then something happens, which means, now we've got to go to a second series. The plot of it just feels like it hasn't finished yet, and so it needs to go into a further series to continue this story. Because if it did end at that series, it would have been abrupt. It wouldn't have felt natural.
Just some of the imagery that you see in Common Side Effects is just stuff that I've never seen before in a series, and how it kind of goes from this tale of potential and wonder and slowly becomes more and more sort of horrific as it goes on. I'm just so intrigued to find out what happens in the next series. It's just such an amazing piece of work.
The other thing I had TV-wise was actually something that we never talked about on the podcast, and I was shocked. I had to search through our episodes numerous times. So I was like, we must have talked about this, because I know we outside of the pod had talked about it, and that's on Amazon Prime, Last One Laughing.
Yes,
which is obviously a series that's been around for quite a while. I think it's been around 10 years. Started in Japan 10 years ago, and it only just hit kind of the UK's version this year. So this is the show where you've got 10 comedians in a room who have to not laugh. They're allowed 2 strikes and they're out. You have that combination of people trying not to laugh, whereas other people are trying to make them laugh, and obviously full of kind of comedians, so they're naturally very funny people. And there's just something so natural about seeing people laugh, and in a viewer, when you see someone naturally laughing, it's inherently funny.
Yes.
Because when you can see that natural joy coming from the laughter, you can't help but love it. And the only thing funnier than that is seeing people try not to do that laugh and try and see what contortions of their face they're having to do in order to stop themselves from kind of giggling at all. And I think it was just fantastic. They're already planning the second series, which I imagine will probably be coming out in 2026. It's such a simple show, but it's so effective, and it's like 7 or 8 episodes, and it was just a joy to watch. And it's just one of those things where you just sit there and let it wash over you, and you can just really enjoy people being happy. I was just shocked that we'd never discussed it, because I think it's just such a brilliant show.
What's very clever about this is a number of reasons. One is that economically, it's such a cheap show for, in this case, it's Amazon who's taken on this property, but it existed somewhere else before. It's a cheap show for them to make. They can film it all in a day, basically, and just segment that day into these episodes, which we kind of get piecemeal. But it speaks to that nature within us as human beings that are drawn to blooper reels or outtakes, where it's people who are professionals playing a role that break character for whatever reason. Here, everything's unhinged because there's no script. It's just these comedians in a room together, some of them trying to make each other laugh, but in doing so, they may inadvertently make themselves laugh. And there's something really delicious about that. We have the ability to laugh, but they don't.
Yeah. But it's just a simple thing. It's let's put a group of funny people in a room and let's see what happens. And it's like, and it's one of the things of like, with That One Laughing, there are certain people in there that I may not particularly be a huge fan of some of their comedy in terms of like their writing or their stand-up, stuff like that. So for example, I really like Bob Mortimer. I'm not a huge fan of his comedy in terms of like stand-up and stuff like that. But from watching Last One Laughing, there is no doubting he is an inherently funny person, just naturally. Some people have that thing where they are just, you could give them the most mundane story, but coming out of their mouth, it suddenly becomes funny. Like there's a moment in Last One Laughing where he makes someone laugh by sitting on a chair, and like, when you put these funny people together, these things happen. And that's just a joy to watch, I think.
Pete had this to say about the Wavelength app. I can't do the voice. A lovely, super low barrier to entry digital tabletop adaptation that is perfect for a queue.
Department queue.
Playing it standing in line for a flight is one of my fondest memories of the year.
Wow, is that from the Google Play App Store, Sam, that review? Since the episode 234 aired, I've since played this with my family online, and it is an absolute blast. I played the physical version before, but for me now, the app is where it's at. Like, it is genuinely a real treat. I love those kinds of games where it's about as much trying to just see what's going on in people's brains in terms of how they rank things or categorize things. Like, where's their level of severity in terms of along a particular scale? And I'm always continually surprised, even when I play it with people that I know very, very well, what their answers are really. Are they being too cautious? Are they being overcautious? Oh my gosh, on the completely other side to what I was thinking of here. And as we spoke about in the pod, like, it's a cheap game. It's not free, but it's cheap. And it's a very generous game as well, in terms of only one of you needs to buy the packs to kind of share that with other people as you're playing on the app.
I'm going to do a couple of quick fire ones. Let's get through this.
Yeah.
Weapons. My film of the year.
Brilliant film.
Spoke about it on episode 230. Nothing needs more to be said about Weapons. It's amazing. Incredible. I watched 40 films this year. I thought I did really well.
That is good.
And Weapons was my number one. My second favourite board game of the year was finally getting to play Slay the Spire. Episode 224. It is the best physical adaptation of a digital card game. It's stupendous. It's brilliant. I stayed up far too late one night playing it, and we just could not put it down. It's just so good. But those are just two off my list. Quickfire.
Quickfire from me. Hell or High Rollers, the best podcast I've listened to this year.
Okay, not even this one then.
Well, I edit this as well. I edit a third of these shows, as you, and as does Dan. You're editing this show. I love this show. I listen to you when we're in the shower. When I'm in the shower, I listen to this.
So you get into the shower and listen to yourself?
Well, not just me. I don't cut you out. I just have something sometimes in the background.
Just the Chris Darby cut.
I don't do it every day either, Dan.
Do you guys not do that? I've got a whole folder full of the Dan cuts of all the episodes.
Wow. But we're all big fans of the Adventure Zone here, and I've not really found a real-time tabletop role-playing game that has that right tone of comedy, but also a really darn good story. And Hell or High Rollers has been that for me this year. It's from the Mischief Theatre Group, who I really adore. Their first campaign finished last year, and it's all there for you to listen for free online. Some really engaging, funny characters from some very talented improvisers, and a really engaging story about what would hell be like in the Dungeons & Dragons world, and how do you get out of it.
Nice.
The only other thing I'm going to mention, Quickfire, is my favourite film of the year, which just beats Weapons, is because it was a very personal experience to me, which was Einstein on the Beach by Robert Wilson, which is an experimental opera that I made Sam watch with me, which is about 4.5 hours long, about the life of Albert Einstein by one of my favourite directors, Robert Wilson, who sadly passed away last year, with music by the incredible minimalist composer Philip Glass, which takes you to this dreamlike state. The only thing makes me think of is Kentucky Route Zero, all those kind of Twilight games I spoke about.
Just before bed games.
Or games before bed, just before bed games. That I spoke about in the last episode, where I can't tell you, Dan, a specific moment, but I can remember the feeling. And it just washes over you. It's this beautiful kind of dream, and I absolutely loved it.
Watching that, I think there was probably an hour period where I don't remember blinking.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Let's do another one of Pete's. Quickfire. Skate. Well, he brings up every blooming show, so...
Episode 236.
Yeah, we talked about it only 2 episodes ago, so...
Yes, and The Drops of God. Again, I can't do the voice. Stop making me. This super lengthy manga series really stoked in me my interest around wine and taught me some useful stuff about how to think about it. Not talk about it.
No, just think about it. I'm not going to share it with you, chaps. I'm just going to think about it, mull it over.
That's why he's really annoying, because he'll just sip the wine and go,
So if you want to hear him think about Drops of God, tune into episode 225.
Do you think Pete would ever mull any of his priceless wine? Did he do that over the Christmas period, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he'll definitely mull over it.
Let's just pause to let that awesomeness sink in. There is a video game that is the game of the year. It should be the game of the year for me, but it isn't. It was beaten by something that I enjoyed much, much more. But really, my number 2 game is Blueprints, that the 3 of us played and enjoyed this year. I think we need to talk about that, because that was an astonishing debut.
Yeah.
From episode 223 in the pod, we spoke about this. And we actually spoke about it on several episodes after that.
Yeah, it actually really frustrates me that Pete hasn't...
He won't. He will never play
chosen not to play this, because I think that he would find a lot of satisfaction from it. And partly for me, being there in the moment with you two, exploring it almost in parallel, and that feeling of shared discovery and tiptoeing around things and not wanting to spoil it, but also having that feeling inside you where you're just excited for the other person. And I think for me, the biggest feeling was the penultimate run before the end.
So close.
When you just do it, and you're just a few steps away, and you just know that, right, I can do it.
Yeah.
I can really do this now. And then just doing it, and that thrill that it's actually happening, and wanting to kind of wake up my wife and go, look at this thing that I have done.
Look at what I've achieved.
It's 2 a.m.
Yeah, it probably was actually.
But did it happen to you where it took me back to when I used to play games, hard games on the PlayStation, where You can be trying and trying and trying, but then the moment you just do it casually, it just happens to work for you.
Yeah, you come back the next day
Yeah.
and just do it. Like it's that my big thing last year that I kind of noticed, and I'm going to try and change for this year, is that I only completed 12 games this year, right? And in my keep it notes of my favorite games of 2025, there's at least 20.
But those are big games, though, Sam, that you started. Let's not forget last year.
But that's what I mean. Like, I'm starting stuff and just not finishing it, right? And which is another reason why Blueprints is on here, because it just got me, and I was just like, I am finishing this. I am seeing this right through to the end. And I've played, there are some amazing games on this list, like Donkey Kong Bonanza and Expedition 33 and Silk Song, Roottrees are Dead, that I've just like started. These are amazing, but just not finished it and not wanted to go back to it yet. But Blueprints grabbed me and just didn't let me go.
Yeah, I had a similar kind of feeling for a really, quite a weirdly kind of profound feeling about it, because like just before we kind of came on, I was just eating my dinner with my wife, we were talking about it, and she kind of said like, what are you talking about tonight? And I said, we're doing kind of our top 5. So what's in your top 5? And I mentioned Blueprints, and she was just like, that has to have been like the best game we have ever played together, because she doesn't play video games. It's not something that she enjoys doing. She does enjoy watching me play video games, and if we can find something where she can interact, like she's loved the Quantic Dream games in the past because she can control kind of decision making part and I can be in control of that. And then we started playing this, and it was literally, it was so strange that we would play it every single day. When we had a run, we would run until we couldn't go anymore. We never kind of can't like reset it or anything like that. So we would play for maybe an hour, maybe a little bit more. And we play it every single day. And Sam, you're talking about that whole kind of almost like binging it. Like you can't stop going back to it. We were getting steadily closer. And then one time, like the stars aligned and we were like, we can do this. Like if we get this and this and this, we could do this. And suddenly we did, and we got there. It was amazing. And by the end of it, it wasn't just me and my wife. My 8-year-old son was joining in as well, and he was so excited. If a new room came up, he'd get so excited as well. So it was a real family thing. But as soon as we'd done that, we got to the end and we're like, okay, so there is some stuff we still want to figure out, some puzzles we still want to work out. And so we started to keep going to get those. But then we maybe missed a day or missed a couple of days, and then suddenly you fall out of that pattern, and it's then a struggle to get back into it. And that's that binging element, that as soon as you've stopped, I'm kind of happy to not go back. But it was definitely like a game that I've never seen the like of in the past, of like that element of communally between us as a family. We were just so loving it. Every time something happened, working out progressively as the more you play, you work out puzzles. The joy of the game is the discovery. When you discover that room, that brand new room for the first time, or just something small, or when you've worked out a puzzle for the first time, which has unlocked something, and suddenly what you thought was a really small thing becomes this much grander thing. Like I talked before last year that Thank Goodness You're Here will be on my next best things of the last 100 episodes. Blueprints, I would be shocked if that's not on there as well. It was the most amazing experience.
That was my second favourite game of the year. My number one, as Sam has already mentioned, is The Roottrees Are Dead. I knew it from the moment I played it way back, early 2025. This was going to be my game of the year. Without a shadow of a doubt. This is totally me. It has that mechanic of Case of the Golden Idol, of filling in the gaps to try and solve a mystery, but it also has that Return of the Obra Dinn thing, where when you've got like 5 correct, it tells you, and those are locked in, so you feel you're working towards something. And that, even though the mechanic is repetitive, how you solve those clues is always different, because you're going through this family tree, looking at photographs, newspaper clippings, interviews, trying to piece together who is related to who in this family, to try and find who is the natural kind of blood heir of this huge, sweet empire, the Roottrees. And when I first spoke about this way back in episode 217. I'd only played about an hour and a half of it. I played the whole thing. I even played the extra expansion they put on top of it, DLC, which was for the new fresh version that came out in 2025 that was also really good, that unlocked another part of the corkboard. And I walked away feeling satisfied. I completed 100%. I know it's a game I'm going to play every 2 years, giving it enough time for me to forget some things and go back into it fresh again. An absolutely incredible game. I will be shocked if that is not going to be on my top 10 in our next list.
That's on my list of things to complete this year.
I could not walk away from it. I found it so difficult to stop playing that game. Pete's picked Civilization as his last top 5. The little game that could.
In with a bullet. This was my equivalent to Twilight Imperium, I feel like, in terms of something that he's always wanted to do and getting to finally play it. This was a goal game for me, says Pete. Getting to play a game of such significance and, frankly, length of playtime with some of my favourite people was something I'll remember forever. Yeah, I mean, Civilization was an experience.
It was. I think it was an assault on the senses, a very slow assault on the senses.
Yes. It still rankles me a little bit that we fudged the ending because Pete couldn't last.
Right.
What also rankles for me is that on that last turn, which decided everything, I got my maths wrong and I could have won the game, but I got my maths wrong.
You got over it though, Dan, didn't you? 2026 we're in now, Dan. Let's not forget that.
Yeah. I mean, it's for me, playing Civilization, and I completely understand where Pete's from, is it kind of made me realise what Twilight Imperium does is so good. Because I would happily play, and I do try to. 2025 was a little bit more difficult, but I feel like I could play Twilight Imperium every single year, and for it to be interesting and different every single time. I don't think
every single year or every single week. Did you just say?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not that mad.
Oh.
I feel like I wouldn't get the same with a game like Civilization. It did just kind of made me realise like how good a job Twilight Imperium does in terms of stretching out an experience and building a narrative amongst people in a room. Sorry, I've taken Pete's thing and made it all about me.
Well, he's not here to stop you, so go for it.
Typically, in my own experience, when you fail in Twilight Imperium, it's typically your own fault.
Yes.
Whereas in Civ, it can literally be, oh, you're this country, you're next to this person, and they've done this first.
It was a big challenge. I think it was a game made in a different age and for a different
civilization.
A different audience. I mean, Pete now has the expansion, so whether we'll go back to it. I mean, I'd like to.
I don't play many board games, but one of the few board games I have played did make it onto my list. And it's kind of a Trojan horse way of getting Aircon onto my list as well, because I played this at Aircon.
I was really surprised that this was on your list.
I wanted to get Aircon on there because Aircon was the first time I'd been there this year, and I really did enjoy it. It wasn't what I was expecting. I really did enjoy it. The big kind of takeaway game that I really enjoyed off the back of that was Daybreak. We talked about this on episode 220, which I think was our big kind of Aircon episode. So
yeah,
for everything I'm saying here, I'm also talking about Aircon as well. But I haven't experienced many games that have that whole engine building element where you're kind of working together and you're building certain things which then kind of run by themselves. And that's just something that just like had such a satisfactory kind of way of working that as I was putting these cards in, I could plan ahead and it would take care of itself, which was really nice, as opposed to kind of constantly be thinking, okay, how do the mechanics of this work? If I do this, and then I do this, and then this, I could work out and say, okay, well, I'll set that off running, and that's going to earn me X amount of points or whatever. I can set this off and running, and that's going to earn me so many points. And then it would just run, and I could just focus on other things. And I've not really experienced many games like that in the past. And this one did it so brilliantly that I just really kind of found it fascinating. And then when you build it into the kind of that wider kind of narrative of the game around the ecological stuff and all that, so it's really very well paced and very well. The tone of it is kind of really nice, of how it's trying to look at this subject matter. Going in, I wasn't sure because Sam was kind of raving about it, but I can be hit and miss with board games, especially some ones that Sam's brings to the table. I don't always, not so much agree with them because I always know that they're good, but they kind of sometimes bounce off me. But this one very much kind of agreed with me. It's not a game I'm going to go out and buy to play all the time because it's just, that's not the kind of life that I have. I don't play many board games at home. But it was just such a good experience that we had there. That it was really brilliant.
Yeah, I think there's always a nervousness about sharing a game like that, especially one that I think I feel like this is really good. I think this is really, really special. I think Daybreak does something really, really interesting. There's a bit of nervousness about showing that to a group of people because it's great if it's everyone's first time playing it. You don't really know, and you kind of go, well, that felt really special. That felt really is it? Or is it just the moment? And it was, for me, playing that and seeing you all kind of react to it in the similar way that I felt to it really, really established the provenance of that game and how it works really well as a cooperative experience. And then just being at AirCon made it extra special.
Well, I think that kind of that whole thing of having that impression, then sharing it. I think often we do this with the podcast a lot. Like when we bring stuff to the table. Like we talked about common side effects before. I was really enjoying it, and there was an element of nervousness of it's not something I usually watch. Am I getting this wrong? So when I bring it to the table, I'm not quite sure. I know I'm confident that I like it, but are people going to go, Dan, you're wrong. This is rubbish.
But it doesn't matter, Dan. It doesn't matter.
I know, but what I mean is just agreeing with Sam in terms of there is that nervousness about bringing something to a group where you like it and you want other people to, and you don't want that to have a negative effect for them. You don't want to. It's not a case of I would have walked away thinking, oh, actually no, common side effects was bad and I was wrong. It would have just been a case of that's a shame that other people didn't have the same feeling as I did.
But that's really good though. I'm always kind of irritated by people that say this is bad, and and they present it in an objective manner rather than I think this is bad. Do you know what I mean? That always kind of irks me.
I don't think that's what Dan's really saying. I think it's kind of you really wanting someone to feel the same and have that same feeling of enjoyment and pleasure that a thing gives you. It's the other day, we played Tofu Shifu together, Kris.
We did.
And I absolutely love that game and I think it's really, really good. But you don't like it as much as I do. And there's nothing wrong with that, nothing having an opinion, but I'd love you to love it as much as I do.
I know, but it's lovely also to hang out with you, to see your enthusiasm for it. It genuinely, it makes me look at it with fresh eyes, and I really enjoy that feeling. The same way that Dan has brought common side effects to me. I've watched that with my wife. We both loved it. That would not have happened if it hadn't been for Dan Frost.
But I think what Dan's saying is that enthusiasm and that passion is something that you really want other people to get on board with.
Do you find it easier? I'm saying this now just because I was speaking about Department Q beforehand, but do you feel sometimes when you say you introduce a topic or you talk about something you like and people just haven't taken to it whatsoever? Eternals.
I think history will say I was in the right there.
No. But this idea, do you, that feeling, do you feel like you've kind of got a good process to not feel taking that personally, as if you're the one that created this IP or created this thing in the first place? You're able to divorce yourself from the thing in itself.
For me, a massive part of the hobbies that I enjoy is the privilege of getting to share that with someone else. So the other day I was out with a friend of mine, and he is the only person that I know in my close circle of friends who's seen 28 years later, a film that I think that has not left my mind since I watched it. But I've not been able to talk about this film with anyone else until I found out that they'd watched it. And that to me was more precious than the feeling I've watched this film. There are so many board games, for example, that I've sold, I've given away, that I think are absolutely superb, but I know I will never play because no one else really shares my enthusiasm for that game.
Yeah. Yeah,
And,
I know what you mean.
like, I'd rather have a collection of games that I know I can share with other people and bring joy to the majority of people than have games that I really enjoy and no one else.
that you can't play
That I can't
solo.
play solo, and I can't have a shared experience with other people around. And so for me, like, that is a large part of the joy that, I guess, this quote unquote culture that we exist within is really important to me. Like, it's the act of sharing just heightens the joy and enthusiasm I have for the things that I love.
And I think it is worth saying that, like, I've known of a lot of people that when they get to our age, that they tend to become more isolated for various reasons. So, like, for me, it is like a real joy. Like, I'm really so glad that we saw each other as much as we did last year. Because, you know, typically for a lot of people our age, you know, those points of contact start to kind of decline, really. You know, like, I'm talking about like face-to-face, sharing the same space kind of stuff. So it was a real joy that we actually met up as much as we did. And, like, that's why Gibberers is my number one board game experience of last year. It's not my favourite game of last year by any stretch of the imagination. But like Civ, the opportunity to have that once-in-a-lifetime experience for me with my mates where we created a language together in a cabin in Wales next to a river was amazing. Like, yeah, no, we spoke about it in episode 228 of the pod, being able to speak in bits of that language after we played it. I can't remember any of it now.
No.
But, like, that was just a joy. And the journey of that game, from you picking it up for me in Essen to making its way here, was just such a wonderful treat. It was literally the gift that kept on giving. And I'm almost scared to play that game again because we built a language. I almost feel like I don't want to overwrite that in some way. I know it sounds a bit silly, but that was just a sensation. That game was more than it was an actual game, to be honest. A little bit like what, let's be honest, the real game of 2025.
Sometimes on this podcast, I feel like, and again, I guess we talked about it quite a lot in terms of, like, we discover a game collectively as a group and we kind of think, is this like a group hallucination, or have we discovered like a genuine, like, amazing thing? It was the same with Dutch Blitz a couple of years ago.
Dutch Blitz.
Lost Planet 2.
Lost Planet 2, absolutely. And last year, it was without doubt Strike. We discussed it again on episode 2020, or 220. The one where we went to Aircon. And again, I can close my eyes. I know exactly what I was wearing, mainly because we took an obscene amount of videos playing this game.
In slow motion.
But it was like we were there with good friend of the show and good friends of ours, Richard Simpson from the We're Not Wizards podcast. And a friend of his just had this game, this strange, odd box, which had this recessed inside, which was slightly tiered, and you just hand some black dice and just chuck them in. And it is... it's... And just thinking of, like, the journey that we then, or particularly me, went on with that game to then source a copy in Germany, 2 copies, one for Kris, one for myself, get it shipped over.
Thank you very much.
To then play it 47 times in a period of 59 days. So I almost played this game once every day.
Pausing to complete blueprints.
Over a period of time. A game that my 5-year-old son loves, that my wife
tolerates.
A game that I've shared with, like, my gaming group, with all 4 of you, with strangers alike. I think it's just like, it has been a superb addition to my collection, and the feeling like that game just kind of just appeared.
It's a sensation.
And just like, is this actually good? Like, is this really, like...
It's just dice.
It's just dice throwing them in a box.
Yeah, but it's the whole buzz and atmosphere around it. You can't help but get swept along by it. Like at the aircon, like there were, in my mind's eye, there were thousands of us crowded around this little box on the table, all stood up, watching two people throw dice at other dice in this little box.
It was just the game, the board game really of the year for me.
I bought a copy of this for my brother when I was at a board game shop in France. They had it there, like an old version of Strike. I got it him as a birthday gift because he loves it as well now. Like my entire family absolutely adore this game.
Yeah. Also, like, so I bought a copy of it myself. Like, I didn't play it at Aircon, but I played it afterwards, and I was like, this feels really good. And I bought it. My 8-year-old son loves it. Like, we played it, Sam, when you were coming through Leamington Spa near me. We were in a cafe, and I brought it along, and me, you, my little boy, your little boy, we were all playing Striker. It was lovely. But I think one of the best things about it is the fact of it is a game that can be picked up by anyone. Like, I went away for a few days with the family of my parents, went to the Cotswolds, and I took it Strike along. I took a few games, but Strike many, because I was like, this is such a simple game. There's no time commitment because a game is over in 5 minutes at most. So that churn of playing, and it's very easy to let's have another game. And like my parents who don't play board games at all, like they could play it immediately. Like their board game level is playing Monopoly, but playing Strike, they were into it straight away. There was no kind of learning it because it takes 30 seconds to learn it. And then I'm sat there watching kind of my parents play with their grandson playing Strike, and them all having that kind of really lovely experience. I think that's like a big thing about it as well, that it's so easy to pick up and it crosses all generations because everyone understands it. There's no element to it that's too thinky. You don't have to learn like cards and mechanics and all that stuff. It's throwing dice. If they match, brilliant. If they don't, bad. That's it.
It's like playing marbles in the playground.
It was very close to being in my list. Like, I think Daybreak made it because I played Daybreak at Aircon, so there was that element to it as well. And I didn't play Strike at Aircon. That's kind of why that made my list as opposed to Strike, but Strike was right there as well.
Right, Kris, can you remember the first line of Auld Lang Syne?
So let all people be forgot.
Try one more time.
Is that...
Have a real think about it, okay? We're not rushing this, okay? We're not rushing it. We'll cut out the 5 minutes of silence though you think of it.
So can we never know? Should all the people?
I mean, you're getting
forgot?
there.
Well, I mean, thematically, you're kind of in the right wheelhouse, kind of. Instead of people, say acquaintance. Instead of all, say old.
Should old acquaintance be forgot?
Yay! There you go. Should old acquaintance be forgot?
I've just got to hold that now in my head till New Year's Eve 2026.
Yeah. I mean, you didn't manage to get through an hour, so good luck.
As is tradition at this time of year, we usually pick a new outro for
the
podcast to come.
Was that just it, the one I said?
Should old acquaintance be forgot?
No, so all the people be forgot.
No.
Should all the people be forgot? That's the outro for this year.
I think it's an interesting question, but we need to think of a new outro.
I think Take Care should stick around. I like Take Care sticking around.
Yeah.
Pete's story of Jermaine Greer was generally one of my highlights of 2025.
Yeah, that nearly made my list as well.
So whilst Kris and Dan are thinking about what the outro should be, thank you so much for all the things that you did for us over in the year that was 2025. We really do appreciate it. If you came and saw us on Instagram at stayinginpod, thank you. If you sent us an email at stayinginpod@gmail.com, then thank you for that. Also, if you dropped us a DM, if you went to one of our Spotify playlists that Kris lovingly puts together, if you went to our curated page on BGG or curated page on Steam to check out all the board games and video games that we've spoken about over the length of the show, then we are exceedingly grateful for that, and we hope that you will continue to enjoy us throughout 2026. So, without further ado, I'll now hand over to Kris and Dan, who have chosen the staying in outro for this year.
Would you like to know what AI has to say? So I typed in, give me a phrase to end a podcast, no context.
Okay.
And it came up with, and that's how the cookie crumbled. Or did it? I like it. It's open-ended.
Okay, and Kris is man versus machine. Go on.
Here we go. Careful now.
Take care.
Okay, careful now. Take care. Yeah, okay. Right, so let's just see what sticks.
That's also a good one.